Hello and welcome to another Alatreon Overexplained video. This time we are doing Guard Lance. We'll be playing Ice Lance versus Fire Alatreon, Evening Star Quest. And we'll jump right into it. We have some notepad stuff. Actually, let me show the gear set fully again. This is the equipment set we're running. Probably easier to do it this way, right? This is what we're running for equipment. And augments on the lance. I believe we're running all attack custom augments, or mostly attack custom augments on the Cure Lance. You can do element also if you want. So some notes here for everybody. We're running Guard Lance, offensive guard. Necessary decorations or skills. We need Guard 5 for Alatreon. Several of his attacks have massive knockback. Guard 5 is required for the fight. And we need regen augment on the weapon. Hey Zorlok, I'm doing well, how are you? Now regarding the armor skill Guard Up, Guard Up itself only allows us to block 3 or so additional attacks without, and 2 of these are just really bad to guard in my opinion. The 3 sets of attacks are the Ice Fog Breaths, either the aerial or the standing one, the Downward Fire Breath, that's all done from the air, and the Sweeping Fire Beam. So that's the one where he's on the ground, only the one when he's on the ground, and he pans from left to right. Those are the only 3 attacks that require Guard Up to block. Everything else, the explosions, the straight-on fire beam, the oil attacks, the flying fire beams, all of those do not require Guard Up to block. So you can choose whether or not you want Guard Up. I don't play with it. You can use Guard Up to make it more comfortable, but I prefer during these attacks, like during the sweeping beam, I prefer to just run at him. Try and close the gap. You can't do that when you're got your shield up. And then because I have high damage in the regen augment, I literally just tank the ice and fire breath attacks. I attack them during them. They're good openings, and I use our regen augment to heal. We do still, I personally, still use some points of evade window. We don't forsake it, because again, there are some attacks that we're not blocking. Some of the attacks have super high knockback, so even though you can power guard them, even though you can guard the ones with super high knockback, I still prefer to dodge them when possible. As for weapons, the Cure Lances are good, so are the Safi Lances, and realistically, any lance that has, with good play, any lance that has like 350, 400 element is enough to topple. So any lance that has more than that will help you if you are struggling getting the topples. Safi Lances have higher raw. I'm pretty sure at one point I ran a lance set that had like 250 element. And I got a topple like right before he got Eschaton Judgment. So that's like really close. I would normally recommend playing with at least 400 element, if not higher. The Cure Lance, because it has so much element, you can actually topple 2, and sometimes, if you're like really built into element and playing well, you can actually get 3 topples, but that's really tough. But you can get 2 topples pretty much every fight, and because of those topples, they give you long openings to hit the head, and so that makes up for the lack of damage, and I actually prefer using the Cure Lances because of that. If you don't want to go for multiple topples and just prefer to play with more raw, but still use the Cure Lances, you don't need any fire attack or ice attack. Right? The Cure Lances by themselves have enough element to topple without any fire or ice attack, so you can go more raw damage skills. And for Fire Alatreon, you can also use Frost Fang or other options. As I said, anything that has roughly 400 or more element is enough to topple. And particularly if you're playing well, if you're not super familiar with the fight, you'll probably want closer to like 700 total element. So total element with skills, you probably want closer to 700, 800. The Kiara Lance can get as high as 990 element on it. Right, we're not playing full element on our augments, so we don't quite have that much. The Kiara Lances can get as high as 990, I think even up to 1,000 element. Very high. But again, you only need roughly 500 or so, 400 for a single topple. We're using Blight Res 2 on our equipment, if using Coalescence. If you're not using Coalescence, you can use Blight Res 3. This makes the fight a lot more comfier, makes it safer to get topples, and especially when you're using really low element lances. If you're using like a 300 element total, so that's including armor skills, if you're using a 300 element lance, you're going to want that Blight Res 3 so you don't have to keep using Null Berries to remove Dragon Blight. For armor, we're just going to use a Fatalis Mix set. You can pick whatever you want for the extra piece. You can use the Rime Guard Gamma Helm, you can use the Rime Guard Gamma Boots, you can use Call of Tarant Boots. All of these are good. I have run Frostcraft on Lance before, but it's really more of a meme build because sheathing just takes so long on Lance, and you keep your weapon out for so long that Frostcraft isn't that effective. So playstyle notes during the fight. As mentioned, there are attacks that we specifically choose not to guard. Those are the Big Head Slam. The Big Head Slam, which is the pin attack. Technically speaking, you can power guard, but even with power guard, there's still like a delay in your counter attack, so I prefer to just dodge it. If you're not going to run Evade Window, if you choose not to use Evade Window or you can't slot it, power guard this attack. The Sweeping Fire Beam, as I said, I don't use guard up, so this forces me to have to dodge it. You'll get plenty of time to sheath your weapon and dodge the attack. It's pretty simple. It's not difficult to do. The Ice Breath, the Ice Fog Breath attack, you can literally just poke his face, or if you're far away, you can use your dash attack and jump. As long as you're in the air, during the Ice Breath attacks, as long as you're in the air, you don't take any damage. So you can dash attack and jump to avoid taking damage as you charge towards him. Or you can Clutch Claw his body anywhere. Once again, if you're not on the ground, you don't take damage. The Downward Fire Breath is pretty tricky. It does lots of damage. So this one I would actually recommend using a healing item if you don't have high damage, if you're not confident, or if you're not like... You need to be like more than 3/4 health, I think, to reliably survive that. You need to be like more than 3/4 health, so healing items, if you're high HP, you can literally just lifesteal. Stand in it, don't guard. Poke his face if you can, poke his arms when he lands. The 3-ring explosion attack. I prefer to hop the middle explosion, but you can either counter guard or power guard to stay in the middle and get some damage on the face. And then specifically the Dragon Aura explosion attacks, you can power guard them, but they still apply Dragon Blight even when power guarding, so I prefer not to do that, because I don't want the Dragon Blight. You get blights from the fire, and you get blights from the ice throughout the fight. Which reminds me that Resuscitate is kind of also useful. Resuscitate, I don't know how to spell it, is useful. So the Resuscitate armor skill, which is just a 1-slot skill, it's easy to fit in. It's also on the Rime Guard Gamma. That helps you with stamina management against Ice Blight. So that's also helpful. Very important to note in terms of playstyle, Counterclaw in this fight is extremely dangerous, especially when he's enraged. You can Counterclaw an attack, and he can begin his lightning or his icicle barrage attacks, and if you Counterclaw his face, you'll end up stuck on his face with no way to drop, and you'll take a bunch of damage, and you can potentially die. So Counterclawing is very dangerous in this fight. If you do want to Counterclaw, pay close attention to what he's doing, and you may consider swapping, like moving to his arms before doing your Tenderize. Because of this, I don't really Counterclaw at all. I don't Counterclaw. There's something that I do called reverse guarding. It's when you turn around and you face the opposite direction. You put your back towards the monster. There are several attacks you can do this with. The first one is the 3-ring explosion. So if you're like on the... If you're in the middle, if you're in the middle explosion, but you're not dead center, you want to put your back towards the center, because it will push you towards the middle. It'll push you in the direction towards the middle, and by putting your back towards the center, it prevents you from being pushed to the second ring. If your hunter is facing the center, you will be pushed into the second ring if you don't power guard. But I mentioned with this 3-ring explosion, you can power guard to stay in the middle if you choose to. His diving attack, so this is when he's far away and he sort of swoops into the air and dives down at you. You can actually turn around and counter, and you'll be able to hit usually his arms when he dives past you that way, and you can put your back towards him when he's in the middle of the air and initiate your counter there. And then the sheets of lightning. So this is the one where he jumps away and he does a bunch of waves of lightning down through the arena. This one you can put your back towards him and do a regular guard, and when you do the regular guard, the lightning will push you towards him, and then you can use your guard reaction to initiate a power guard and rotate. So those are some opportunities for what I call a reverse guard, putting your back to the monster. Because we hit the arms quite often on Lance, we're going to keep them tenderized. There are lots of opportunities to do this without using the Counterclaw, such as when he begins to fly, when he uses his lightning storm, when he's doing the sweeping fire breath, when he uses sheets of lightning, all kinds of opportunities for it. So we're going to try to keep the arms tenderized. It makes a really big difference in your damage output. Unlike other weapons, Lance has fairly high reach, so it's not super important to force Alatreon to land during his flight. You don't necessarily need to worry about smokes as much as other weapons, because we can poke his arms and toes. You can hit his front arms when he's stationary, and some attacks when he lowers his head in air, you can even hit his face. And because of this, we can topple him during flight. We may or may not try that in the run, we'll see. And lastly, because we have the Lance the counter mechanic, remember that when he's not enraged, he does 2 lines of targeted lightning and 2 aerial head slams. When he is enraged, he does these attacks 3 times. So we need to plan and adjust our counter guards accordingly. And with the 3rd hit, so with both the targeted lines of lightning and the head slam, there's like a quarter-second, half-second delay. Like it's longer. There's a longer delay between the 3rd one than there are the 1st and 2nd. And then, of course, standard device applies. Standard device always applies. Always keep Alatreon on your screen. You can't make good decisions without knowing what he's going to do next. And in order to know what he's doing next, you have to see what he's doing. You have to keep him on your screen. If you get hit, you might want to stay on the ground. If he flies away and you've taken some damage and you want to heal, you need to make sure he's not attacking you or comboing you, or he's using an attack that will not hit you before you go to heal. So always keep Alatreon on the screen. That's the #1 most important piece of advice. We are going to be using some evade window. Because we're using Fatalis set, we'll have 200 health. We time our attacks and combos when Alatreon's attacks and combos end. This may require pausing inputs, stopping our combos, etc. You can't block, and you can't dodge if you're in the middle of an animation. We're going to use Rocksteady Mantle at the start, so we can spin him and flinch him into the rocks. We're going to try to hit his arms and face as much as we can. If we can't hit his arms and face, we are not going to bother hitting his back legs. Do not hit his back legs. Don't waste your sharpness. Don't waste your time doing that. If you can't hit his arms and back legs, reposition. Pardon me, if you can't hit his arms and face, reposition. And during flight, if he's not enraged, you can flash him out of the air, you can crash him out of the air if he's not enraged, and otherwise you can smoke. As mentioned previously, we're pretty good at toppling. So if we are close to a topple, we are going to try for that instead of smoke shenanigans. Alright, we're going to eat real quick, and we'll do our run, see how we do. Lance is not the flashiest weapon, it's not the fastest weapon, so don't expect super blistering fast times against Alatreon. If you can get a sub 10-minute run on Alatreon, that's really good. We'll be aiming, hopefully, we'll be aiming for 9 minutes or so, if we play well. As usual, I'll be doing some live commentary during this. We forgot to stock up, but that's okay. We're not going to guard. You can guard the roar to activate offensive guard. You can't guard that to proc offensive guard, but it then means that sometimes you don't get the clutch claw in time. So I would prefer to reliably get the clutch claw. Before you actually try to grapple his face, you have to clear his wings. If you don't run past his wings before you actually initiate your grapple, then you'll end up getting the wings. That's another attack that we don't want to guard. And because we always want to hit good zones when we can, we actually don't bother countering the third hit there. I use a guard dash backwards to position in front of the face. We can guard that fast fire beam. That is guardable. Here's a reverse guard chance. Guard dash through that. We didn't make our guard timing, but because of Rocksteady. Okay. Here's our first topple. Again, we're playing a bit recklessly because we have Rocksteady on, and we're just gonna lifesteal back to full HP. Missing some of our attacks there. There's another reverse guard. This one we'll do a regular guard, and then with our guard reaction, we can power guard and turn. Our other option was to just back hop through it. And we get our Clagger. Again, oops, we made a mistake here, but we pay attention to what he's doing. We see he's fire breathing, so he can guard when we stand up. Okay. Because we just got a topple, we are actually going to smoke him. Don't have slinger ammo here, actually, which is kind of problematic. Not having slinger ammo made that take a little longer than needed. almost always roars when he comes out of the smoke. I'm gonna guard dash this because I want to stay in front of his head. Okay. If you double counter the head swings, you double counter them, then you end up in his chest, which is somewhere we don't want to be. Another reverse guard. And you can see, because of our high element, we already got a second topple. I'm actually going to use this as an opportunity to tenderize. While we lose out on a bunch of damage straight away, we get to keep our affinity nice and high. We're not guarding that. We got a Palico Paralysis. Okay, we're looking for an opportunity to rebuff. And this time we're going to grab some Slinger ammo. I already got my second topple. We're in Dragon mode and I got my second topple, so I'm not likely to get another one. Just want to stay in the smoke. Call my Palico over. Shoot him with some Slinger ammo. Guard the roll. So he's using Icicle, we can guard dash. Reverse. So here he's using his ice. We're just gonna poke his face. And we can go into a dash attack. And we just lifesteal through it, right? Alternatively, you can clutch claw onto him. But you do not need to guard the ice attacks. Hit the Clagger. Need to jump back. So you notice that the Fire Breath has a massive knockback on it. I throw on our Evasion Mantle. We're a bit late for the Evasion Mantle, actually. A bit early on our hop there. I'm gonna guard dash back because, again, we don't want to end up in his chest. So with the Eschaton, because we have 2 topples, as long as we're full HP, we do not need to heal. So I can either deal some damage or I can sharpen. I choose to do some damage. My goal for the dash attack is always go under that armpit. These ones we can guard no problem. That's the Fire Breath. This one requires guard up to block, which I don't have. But we were close enough, it didn't matter. And we counter the roar. So he's not tenderized. He's not in the right position. If you can't grab his arms at the start of the lightning, then don't do it, because this is a good opportunity to tenderize. Of course, my Palico flinched him, so we were going to tenderize the arms, but because of the Palico flinch, we'll switch to the head. And because he's close to dying, I can see Skull on the minimap. Because he's close to dying, I'm not going to bother tenderizing the arms. we could prepare our guard when we stand up. That's one of the attacks you can reverse. We're gonna guard that. Sort of want to smoke him here. Okay, he's down. And guard the roar. Again, with that Dragon Aura explosion, we watch the front legs. Front legs are what you're looking for. When the front legs land... Made a mistake because I was talking. When the front legs land, that's when you want to initiate your dodge. Just keep making mistakes because I'm yapping. Being on blue sharpness is less than desirable, but that's the fight. Couple attacks he just didn't use because of the quest. And we got a sub 10, despite my mistakes. I'll take it. You notice a couple times during that fight I did get hit, but again, first thing we do before we get up is we look at what he's doing, and when we see what he's doing, we can decide what our action is. In both cases, I think it was hold R for guard as we were getting up. That way we insta-block the fire beam that was on top of us. You could just remain on your back instead of getting up straight away. Hope this video was helpful. Good luck in your runs. I'll see if I can post another similar video. Maybe we'd perform better in that one with more practice. Talking and fighting the monster is not the simplest thing for me yet. Anyway, have a good one. Bye for now.